In 2011, Gerardo Adan Cazarez Valenzuela nearly walked away with $4.3 million in cash. Usually, it takes a considerable amount of time to plan a heist like this, but Valenzuela, who was also known just as Gary Cazarez, simply put millions of dollars into a box and just left the bank. So how did Valenzuela drive away with such a huge stash alone after just a few months of planning? Gary was a vault manager at KeyBank in Anchorage, in the largest city in Alaska. That probably tells you more than enough as far as the heist is concerned. Valenzuela had access to millions of dollars that was not his. All he needed was a good plan and a little bit of luck to pull off what most people only dream of. According to the U.S. Department of Justice, the former vault manager was looking for the upper hand against his then employer. Apparently, the bank was going through personnel changes. Valenzuela thought that he would have easily been one of the people let go at that time, and that would have effectively rendered him jobless and no cash flow, of course. So Valenzuela decided to take things into his own hands. He took a shot at not just securing his future, but also ensuring he got a little bit of revenge at KeyBank for planning to put him out of work. The plan that Valenzuela had planned out would have worked out perfectly if it weren't for one tiny mistake. Before Valenzuela had even laid down the groundwork for his heist, he had hinted his intentions to his girlfriend. According to the Department of Justice report, he told her that he could just rob the bank easily. There wasn't anyone at the bank that was physically watching over the vault. It was just video surveillance. That was an advantage on his part, since it meant he could slip away without having to deal with anyone else. And because no one watched over the vault, it was one of the big reasons he didn't need any accomplices the day of the crime. But that doesn't mean he didn't need a few people here and there in his grand scheme of things. On July 8th of 2011, Valenzuela was lucky to have a new employee training under his wing. This was something that gave him the perfect opportunity to pull off his heist. This was because whenever the vault needed to be opened, the standard operating procedure required 2 people on hand to open it. However, here's what happened. Valenzuela trained the new employee on various vault procedures. While he was training the new employee, Valenzuela simply eliminated the part about dual controls over the vault. And it was just a few weeks later that he realized he found that the 2 loopholes, the lack of both physical surveillance and dual control of the vault, were all he needed to easily rob the KeyBank Anchorage branch. On July 28th of 2011, Valenzuela did a test run. He stole $30,000 from the bank's vault, all without any problems. With $30,000 cash on hand, he went ahead and splurged most of it. He spent $24,000 on a private jet that flew him from Anchorage to Seattle. This was where he met his girlfriend after the big heist. He had actually already flown her out a couple days before to Seattle. With the jet chartered, Valenzuela moved in for the perfect score. The big day was on July 29th, which was a Friday back in 2011. Considering the hefty amount of cash he planned to steal, Valenzuela needed plenty of time. That meant staying late and staying alone. So he came up with a plan. He told KeyBank's branch manager that he was supposed to be organizing an ice cream social for customers that night, and he'd stay later than usual to clean up as well. The branch manager left for the night without any suspicion. With the bank vault all to himself, Valenzuela simply packed $4.3 million in cash in 3 boxes and then just carted them to his car. Valenzuela then drove to the private airport where the private jet was waiting in Anchorage and flew to Seattle. But before he left the bank, he took care of one tiny detail. He set the timer on the vault to lock for 6 days, the maximum allowable time, so no one would notice money was missing. He had also mailed his and his girlfriend's phones to New York in order to throw off anyone that was looking for them once they figured out what happened. Of course, when the vault was finally opened, KeyBank employees discovered that the vault was short on a huge chunk of cash. But by this time, their former vault manager was already way across the border, and he had no plans of ever coming back or ever being on the grid again. In Seattle, he bought a Ford Fusion, and he and his girlfriend drove to California. He also bought some protection in the form of an AK-47. At this point, everything was going to plan for Valenzuela. His final destination was just getting to his uncle's place in Sonora, Mexico. This is where luck was not on his side. His uncle suggested that they take a bus to his place instead of driving the rough Mexican roads. So they drove to Tijuana and abandoned the car. They then bought bus tickets for Sonora on what was the last trip for Valenzuela as a free man. On August 2nd of 2011, the bus was stopped at a Mexican checkpoint. The passengers were told to leave the bus with their luggage. And this was when Mexican authorities looked inside his bag and discovered millions of dollars. Mexican police found $3.8 million when they arrested Valenzuela in 2011. But didn't he steal $4.3 million? We'll get to that in a bit. But just like that, Valenzuela was arrested on allegations of money laundering and illegal arms possession. He was also charged with smuggling. These charges alone in Mexico earned him a 7-year prison sentence. When he finally got out in 2018, it wasn't over yet. He still had to deal with the U.S. authorities. If it wasn't for a completely random full search on a bus, Valenzuela would most likely still be hunted today. Really, what should have he done instead? Did he really need to have gone to his uncle's remote place somewhere in Sonora, Mexico? Why did he need to see his uncle? Of course, only Valenzuela knows the motivation. He probably should have avoided all remote areas in Mexico at all costs. We definitely liked his choice of buying a non-flashy getaway car in the Ford Fusion. What he needed to do was stay on the main roads and blend in as best he could. Valenzuela could have easily disappeared if he did not attract attention. He also needed to do his research and avoid all areas with known checkpoints. If he had not gotten caught with the random full search, he could have just laid low for a few months off the grid. He would just go to a random big city in Mexico and blend in with the locals. If he had planned his heist further out, he could have taken the time to buy fake documents and IDs somewhere before doing his heist. This way, he would have had fake IDs on hand, ready to use, making his life easier when he got to Mexico. As time goes on, Valenzuela could have easily figured out a way to slowly launder his stolen cash through some sort of fake business. With crypto slowly coming on mainstream, he could have waited years to carefully reintegrate back into society with his fake ID and laundered money in a carefully chosen country. But of course, in this reality instead, he was still a wanted man by the U.S. for stealing millions of dollars from a bank. The Mexican authorities were quick to extradite Valenzuela in September 2018 as soon as he got out of jail. In a letter to the judge pleading for leniency, he wrote that the point of his heist was to raise money for his dad's medical bills. Whether that's true or not, his father did pass before Valenzuela got to trial in the U.S. But even if the main motivation was to pay for his dad's medical treatment, prosecutors also argued that revenge was another factor. $4.3 million was way too much for medical bills. It definitely gave some weight to the federal prosecutor's claims that he was out for vengeance. Valenzuela admitted that he had given the missing $500,000 to his dad for medical bills, but according to his family members, they never got to use the cash. That's because it was supposedly stolen right out of their car. But the prosecution didn't believe him. They had other ideas about where the funds went. According to them, Valenzuela hid the $500,000 somewhere in Washington before he drove to Mexico. With the hidden stash, he hoped to have some cash in case he did get caught. Valenzuela ultimately pleaded guilty to the theft, and on April 29, 2019, he was sentenced to 10 years in prison. His time served in Mexico did not count towards any of the new sentencing. His girlfriend ended up never getting charged with being an accomplice. Here's what's next.